All the commentaries agree that Sarah died right around the time, or exactly at the time of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. Isaac was offered as a sacrifice at age 37 by Abraham, his father, and at the very moment that he was slaughtering, or trying to slaughter Isaac, Sarah saw this, and at that moment she died. And this is very, very puzzling. Why would God do this to Sarah? This seems quite frustrating. Number one, Isaac wasn't to be killed. He survived. Number two, she had suffered so much in her life to have a child that this should be the cause of the end of her life seems excessive, seems cruel. Another point, after suffering so much in her life as a woman, she didn't get a chance to see grandchildren. She wasn't at her son's wedding. She sees no nachas. Another question, Rashi says, all of her life is to be celebrated because kulam shavim l'toiva, they were all equally good. If at the last moment of her life she is heartbroken because the one love of her life, the most precious thing of her life is her child, is going to be killed, and she dies of that fright, then her life has not been good. Her life ends in sadness. And certainly, that part of her life, when she dies, is not happy. How can you say that all of them were good, including the last moment? That's the culmination, that's the ultimate, the coup de grace. It's the crescendo, it's the going up to the highest point of her life. That moment is a sad one, a painful one. Why is it celebrated? This is my opinion only. Sarah was shown by prophecy that her child and her husband were on Mount Moriah, for she wondered, what were they doing such a long time? She had never been used to Isaac going away from her, even for a day. And she was shown that at this moment they're on Mount Moriah, and Abraham is binding Isaac on the altar, and Abraham is taking a knife and going to slaughter her only son. And why? To show the greatness of Abraham's faith, that he would be willing not only to slaughter a child, but the child, the greatest child in the world, but his child, his most precious child. He was willing to sacrifice that for God as well. And this would show the nations of the world how special Abraham was. For all of the nations practiced infanticide. They killed their children for their gods. But their children didn't live very long. Maybe 1 out of 5 children reached it to adulthood. And so this was not a big deal for them, but it was a big deal in the sense it was a child, each child being precious. How could you kill a child? But this was showing that they loved their God more than anything else that they had in their world. And in order for Abraham to show that he truly loved God more than anything else, was going to have to sacrifice his child. At that moment, Sarah pled before God. She says, please, let me die in his stead. Take me and save him. And by me dying, from the sight of the Akedah will show everyone that this indeed was meant seriously. And her words are accepted. And at that moment she dies, the angel stops Avram. At the very moment that the knife is going to slit the throat, at that moment, the angel stops him. For now there was proof that this was real. And so she died a happy woman, knowing that she had saved her son. And everything else that ensues, the marriage, the children, the behavior, the righteous behavior of Isaac, all of this is what she lived for. She lived for her child to be the kind of man that he became. This is Chayei Sarah, her life. This was her life because this was what she lived for, and she ensured that it would continue. And therefore, even the last moment was not one of pain, but rather one of love, one of greatness.